Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to take the fact that my face has appeared as a sign that it's time to kick off. So, as I say, good afternoon. My name is Janice Allan, and I'm very proud to be the Dean of Salford Business School. On behalf of both the school and the university, I'd like to welcome everybody. And we have with us today students, both current and possibly future, local and from across the globe, including a new cohort of leaders from Oman. We've got members of the general public, we've got alumni, and we have local entrepreneurs and businesses. Welcome everybody to our first Festival of Entrepreneurship, which we're hoping is going to become an annual event. I'm mindful that some of our postgraduate top students with us today will be joining us from India. Words are really inadequate when faced with a tragedy of the scale that is currently going on, but our thoughts are with you. And my colleague, Tahir Rashid, is going to put a couple of links in the chat box of sources of help and support from the university. I'd also like to say on behalf of everyone here today, a big thank you to Santander. Santander is our incredibly supportive partner. And they are not only contributing to the program across the 5 weeks, but they are also sponsoring 2 of the competitions. So thank you very much. I also want to say a big thank you to Justina Turner and to Jessica Lewis-Taton for all the hard work that has made this festival possible. Thank you very much, you two, and everybody else. I also want to thank today's 2 speakers. We have Vikas Shah, CEO of Swiscot Group, author of Thought Economics, which I'm going to quote from later on, and as of last week, non-executive member of the BAYS board. We're incredibly privileged to call Vikas an SBS Industry Fellow. We're also joined by John Roberts, founder and CEO of AO World, as well as a truly passionate and committed champion of social inclusion through his various charity work. Thank you very much to both of you because you're incredibly busy and it's very gracious of you to take the time to speak to businesses and students here today. Now, as some of you may know, Salford Business School has been through a period of quite profound and significant transformation and change over the last 18 months. And that's culminated in a new mission and vision. And I just want to take a moment to share our vision with you because it's so relevant to why we're here today. So as you can see on your screen, our vision is to foster the next generation of leaders and a new generation of innovative and entrepreneurial leadership that integrates people, values, and the digital in order to meet the challenges and opportunities of a sustainable future. Now, that vision recognizes the global shift accelerated by the pandemic from functional to entrepreneurial leadership. For us, it's not about a title, it's not about being CEO or director, but about developing a mindset, a set of aptitudes and competencies, centering on things like, and thank you, Matt, you've got the screen right there, I'm hoping you can see that. So some of the characteristics of this entrepreneurial mindset are a willingness to embrace innovation and experiment and possibly fail, because failure is just another opportunity to learn. It's about agility, flexibility, and resilience. Not simply to adapt to new and unpredictable situations, but to see challenges as potential opportunities. I'm reminded, I had a meeting last week with Jamie Edwards, who's chief exec of Manchester Giants Basketball Club. And I'm mindful here of something he said, which is, if you show up, good things happen. If you don't show up, nothing can happen. An entrepreneurial mindset is about showing up literally and figuratively, not just once, but again and again and again. And that takes courage and resilience. The final characteristic that I would mention right now, the final ones are confidence and curiosity. You need to develop the confidence to ask why. Asking why of yourself and of those around you moves you away from the functional and the transactional, associated with the what and the how, to the transformational, to the inspirational, and to innovation. The why is about your purpose, both as an individual and as a business, and your ability to keep that purpose in mind and to communicate that purpose to those around you. That's what's going to keep you going when things get tough. As for the merits of curiosity, I can do no better than to quote our first speaker, Vikas Shah, and he'll know exactly where it is. And this is, I'm reading from the first paragraph of his book, Thought Economics. Vikas writes, "I have no business writing this book. I'm neither a journalist nor a professional writer. What I am, however, is curious. I was the kid who kept asking questions in class, the one who tracked teachers down while they were on their well-earned breaks to ask nice, simple questions like, so, how does the universe work? And I have no doubt that if we went to John, he would also talk about the role of curiosity in his life." The only thing that we can say about the future is that it is going to be characterized by continual and fast disruption and change. That's the only certainty that is ahead of us, uncertainty. So in order to keep up, we're all going to need to become lifelong learners. One of my favorite quotations, one that I cite a lot, and people in the school will be tired of me hearing about it, it comes from Alvin Toffler. In 1970, he wrote a book called Future Shock. That was 51 years ago, but it is still so prescient and apposite for today. He says, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So curiosity is the new survival skill. Cultivate it every chance that you get. It's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the better you will get. And curiosity helps us make good decisions. So it is all of those kind of entrepreneurial competencies that we are committed to developing in Salford Business School. We do this through Launch, which is our startup incubator, which serves students from across the institution. We do this, as is articulated in our mission statement, by connecting with industry. This festival is a fantastic example of that kind of connection, but another example would be our industry advisory board. And you're going to meet some members of our board over the coming weeks. We have, in fact, Naomi Timperley is running the session on networking directly after this welcome. We also do this through our top programs and through our degree apprenticeships. We've got a really exciting new MSc leadership as a degree apprenticeship running from September, and we have a brand new MSc entrepreneurship as well. We also do this, we also are planning a BSc in entrepreneurship again. Equally importantly, we build connections with and for our regional SMEs. As a small business charter accredited business school, we have the privilege of delivering the Bayes funded Help to Grow program, as well as a range of other COVID recovery, leadership, and mentorship programs. The University of Salford was really proud to be one of the first signatories of the Civic University Agreement, and we're incredibly grateful and proud to be helping support, but also learning with and from businesses in our region. I'm going to call it quits now, but I do, if we can just go back to the previous slide, I just want to read out one last citation, which is from an EFMD publication, and that is one of our accrediting bodies. And in that, Selena Vallini makes the following statement. So next slide and next slide again. And again, there we go. All right, she writes, "Enterprising and innovation competencies are no longer just for entrepreneurs, business owners, or siloed innovation labs in the workplace. They are critical for the whole team, for graduates fresh from university, for government and for business leaders alike, for professional and personal development. They underpin our development personally and societally, and will continue to gain importance as time goes on. Thank you very much for your attention. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of these sessions today and over the next 5 weeks. And I'll hand you back over to Justina. And I now have the pleasure of sitting back and learning from the rest of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janice. It's really, really great to hear that from you. It's really great to have the support at the university for entrepreneurship. So my name's Justina Turner, and I'm the incubation manager at Launch. So Launch is the team behind the festival, and we are committed to supporting students and graduates to enhance their entrepreneurial skills and start a business if that's the path that they choose. So just if we move to the next slide, I want to give you a brief introduction about what Launch is. So we've opened Launch Incubator 3 years ago in October 2018. And we've opened it with a mission to support our students and graduates to enhance their skills, entrepreneurial skills, to give them all the tools that they need to set up in business, or to really enhance their careers using those entrepreneurial skills to really take them further and really embrace those characteristics of curiosity and resilience and showing up. So this is something that we absolutely pass on to all of our students in Launch. So in Launch, if we just go on to the next slide, we have some space on campus where students can join us. They can join us to work on their business ideas. They can meet with business mentors. They have some very specific drop-ins from our Salford Business School academics in terms of finance, legal queries, or digital. What we do in Launch is it's not just a space for people to work from, but we put together a very robust 6 months business support program for everybody. We take on 2 cohorts a year. So this year we would have supported 60 students through 2 cohorts of 30, and they join us through various sessions every couple of weeks. We cover topics such as marketing, such as business ideas development, sales, everything you need to know to start your business. In addition, we also are really lucky to be able to give our students some grants, so some seed funding to start their businesses. And some of our grants are sponsored by Santander, as well as by the university, and our students can get up to £3,000 for those initial setup costs. And most students that come through our cohorts will receive funding to give them that support to get themselves started. Okay, if we can go on to the next slide. So within our Launch Incubator, over the last 3 years, we were lucky to work with over 140 businesses. So we supported 140 individuals to start a new business. We've worked with over 1,600 students across the university, and we've awarded over 220,000 in grant funds. So it's really been a fantastic journey. What we wanted to do is open up the entrepreneurship support to more students across the university, open it up to our community, because we're really passionate about giving people those skills and allowing them to join us. Because with Launch, it is quite competitive to get on our cohort. So we're only able to support 60 students. So this is why we decided to put on the festival to really widen our reach and allow everybody to join us in that business community and take part in the learning. Okay, if you wanted to move on to the next slide. So I really just wanted to go over the festival program, and I'm sure that Jess will be sharing a link to that for us. We've just published that last week. So thank you to everyone that's joined us today. If you'd like to join us in any of the sessions that are coming up, you'll be able to sign up through the links. We have some really, really fantastic things coming up. Janice already mentioned just after the session, we will have a networking session with Naomi Timperley, speed networking. So those are actually very, very fun. She'll give you some really great tips on how to increase your network. We are also this week, we are focusing on showcasing local and social enterprise and entrepreneurs. We are very, very lucky to be joined by John Roberts, by Vikas Shah, some really, really important support figures here within Greater Manchester. and successful entrepreneurs. But we will also be working with students tomorrow. So tomorrow we have a social enterprise startup school. So if anyone's interested in setting up a social enterprise, they want to learn how social enterprises work, or how to set up or work in the charity sector, we have a brilliant session tomorrow led by Adrian Ashton. And throughout the week, we have some really, really great panels. We've got female entrepreneurs on a panel coming up on the 20th. As well as, you know, showcasing student societies, things you can get involved with and really make a difference in your local community. And just on Wednesday, we've been working with Salford Foundation, and we're showcasing the results of Launch Business Challenge. We've had several students working with the local charity, solving their business problems and improving how they interact with their beneficiaries. So this is really exciting. If you would like to join us as well, we have this, and you can see some of the exciting work our students have, some of the ideas they've been coming up with to help work with the local charities. So moving on to the week after that, we will be focusing on innovations for future living. This is really exciting. I mean, this is where the university is really doing some amazing work, and we want to showcase some of the facilities at the university, such as the makerspace, such as the cyber foundry that works with businesses to help improve their cybersecurity, as well as any digital issues they might have. We have some really great keynote sessions talking about immersive technologies. We've got some really great speakers. We've got Simon Benson, who's been part of the founding team of PlayStation VR. So it's really, really exciting. Fabulous. So going on to the next week after that, what we want to do is we want to showcase what our students have been doing. I think it's really important to celebrate all of their successes. We have 3 years worth of businesses that started, and they will be competing for some prizes. We have a competition that will be launching. So we've got the launch showcase competition, and that will be for some of our launch businesses. They get a chance to pitch for up to £3,000 to help to take their business to the next level and really kind of demo what they've been working on. But more excitingly, for anyone that's joined us now, we do have a new business competition for any newcomers, anyone that's got business ideas that wants to take part in launch, that wants to win up to £1,000 for this. We have 5 prizes, so you're able to actually enter. If you're here today, if you'd like to find out some more information, I'm sure Jess will share a link today. But yes, we have set aside some funding to really help you develop those ideas. And that's not the only competition. We also have a competition for creatives where they're able to get some funding for that 4th week. So we have some business funding there to get them set up. And later down the line, after the Creatives Week, we will also have a week on global entrepreneurship and another competition that we set aside as a university £20,000 to give to students for international business ideas. So that's going to be happening in week 5, as well as some really, really great sessions happening from speakers to tell you all about how to communicate as a business owner, how to really price your items, how to develop your idea into a concept. So those are some really great sessions that are happening over the 5 weeks. So we have 5 weeks of events, 45 events that you can join us in. So feel free to dip in, dip out as you'd like. And we're just hoping that we can help you with your entrepreneurial journey in the program. So if you just move on to the next slide. And I'd like to now pass you on to Vikas, our first speaker, and just I'm sure he'll be able to introduce himself. But thank you so much, everyone.
Great, thank you both for the introductions, and hi everyone, and it's such a pleasure to be part of the festival. So what I'll do is I'll just give you a quick introduction to my own background and my own business journey before we dive into what will be a fascinating conversation with John Roberts, who's arguably one of the most high profile and most successful entrepreneurs in the UK. So it's an honor to have you with us, John. So my journey started like so many. I remember I didn't know I was an entrepreneur until the first time somebody told me that I was one, which might sound odd, but my dream growing up was to be an airline pilot. That was it. There was nothing else I wanted to be. And as I got a bit older, I was kind of like maybe 13 and starting to look into these things. And as it turns out, becoming a pilot's a ferociously expensive career choice. And so the only two options really were either the family were able to support me into that or join the Air Force. So thanks to these wonderful things attached to my head, the Air Force was not an option. And as a result of that, I went to my family, you know, fairly normal family. They couldn't afford to put me through flying school and all these things. So I thought, okay, what do I do? And so I literally, at the age of 13, picked up a Yellow Pages, as it was then, started phoning businesses to offer to build them a website or do some design work for them. And fast forward till when I was 16. And by the time I'm 16, I've now got full-time employees in New York, Manchester, London, and Sydney, and my life had taken a completely different direction. So it was at that point when the business was scaling that people were saying, so Vikas, tell us about entrepreneurship, tell us your views on entrepreneurship. And I was like, I don't know, am I an entrepreneur? I'm just doing something that I love and something which is making a difference, and it's growing and it's fun and it's exciting. And that's one of those things, you know, entrepreneurship is not necessarily always about business. Entrepreneurship is the set of incredible life skills that you can take with you in all careers. You know, it teaches you how to innovate. It teaches you how to, you know, think in an agile way, to join the dots, how to understand money, how to understand all the different stakeholders of an organization. And when I teach on business programs, it's one of the things that I really try and drill home to people, which is entrepreneurship is a set of life skills. It's not just about founding your own business. So back to that first business journey. So that company continued growing, and I used to spend a lot of time in the US with that company where a lot of our clients and businesses were. And this was, you know, the early days of the dot-com boom. It was a hugely exciting time to be in the US working. The first dot-com bubble, however, was coming to an abrupt end. And that's what put pay to that business. And I had to kind of shut down the business as quickly as I could to salvage enough to then move forward. So since then, you know, I've gone on to grow a textiles and commodities trading business. I've invested in a number of startups in Europe and the USA, teach at a couple of business schools. But also, you know, much like our guest today, you know, philanthropy has become a big part of my life. And it's something which it's not just something which, you know, feels good. And I don't want to lie and say that it doesn't, but it's also an area where entrepreneurship skills are sorely needed. You know, whether you are a small or a large business, the resources you have, the contacts, the networks, the energy, all of those things are deeply important to our philanthropic sectors and social enterprises, particularly at a time like today. And our guest today is no exception. So John Roberts, founder and CEO of AO World. And I love the fact that in his bio, it starts with, you know, one of those classic stories. You know, John took a £1 bet and turned it into a £1 billion business. And in this session, we're going to talk to John about how he started AO from unconventional beginnings, the challenges of those businesses in the early years, and what it means to scale and grow a business through IPO. And we're also going to talk about the importance of culture in a successful organization, which, you know, from speaking to entrepreneurs for all these years, culture is such a critical part of the growth journey. We're also going to talk about the entrepreneurial mindset and how to expand internationally. The exciting part for me as well is John's also going to be speaking about his work as the executive chairman of Onside Youth Zones, which are an incredible organization providing youth centers and giving young people a place to go and someone to talk to. So John, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. You know, really honored to speak with you today.
Thanks, Vikas. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I guess at the starting point for me, you know, you founded AO over 20 years ago. And, you know, we'll talk about that in a moment. But, you know, was this always on the cards for you? Were you one of those people that had always dreamed of starting and owning your own business?
Yeah, well, so certainly selling washing machines online wasn't part of the plan. That's got to be said. But being hopefully a master of my own destiny was very firmly part of the plan. And I'd kind of been pretty disruptive through most of my early life. And so as a result of that, I think I was always going to be a challenge for, for somebody else to manage. And I grew up in a pretty entrepreneurial family where we had lots of different little micro businesses where we were, you know, my mum and dad were always just trying different things, and you know, and that rubbed off on me. So you know, as I went through, you know, through the years, if you like, we were always looking for opportunities, and so you know, we had a go at lots of those opportunities. And you know, I deeply believe that if you believe you can, then you can. And I think lots of people overcomplicate that. And so, yeah, you know, it certainly wasn't the first thing that I got involved in, but it was, you know, it's definitely turned out to be the most successful.
And even though sometimes I think I started young, from as I gather it, you started far younger than me. You know, tell us about some of those, you know, early ventures you had as a kid, just selling things and learning that kind of mindset as well.
Yeah, so I always loved it. I mean, my first venture was age 5 when it was a pretty short-lived venture, it has to be said. But my dad moved one of the businesses into a new warehouse, which was about 3 times the size of my office now. So when I say warehouse, it was pretty small. But the business that had been there previously was a business that made tie pins, and they were on these little sort of velvet cushions with a perspex dome on top. And so there were loads of them still on the racking in the warehouse. And so I was 5, my brother was 6, and we snaffled a load of these, not quite knowing what to do with them. And then when we got them home, when I say a load of them, I mean like a sports bag, you know, so I don't know, 50 of them. And so we went selling them door to door until we knocked on one of the doors. We sold 2. And then one of the doors that we knocked on was one of my mum's friends, so she took us home. But there was always something, you know. We were, my brother had a job at Warburton's, picking old bread out of the machines on a Saturday, and I had a paper round, and I used to take the money from the paper round and get Daniel's staff pass at Warburton's, and go and invest everything. And it was about £7 or £8 that I got from the paper rounds, and go and buy gingerbread men. And then I'd take the gingerbread men into school and set up my own little tuck shop and turn £7 or £8 into about 15 to 20 pounds. So there was, I've had loads of different things along the way. I've always wanted to do sales, and so, you know, that was a very sort of influential part of how we started the business.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating, you know. So I want to come to AO now, but you know what you mentioned about sales is so true. You know, if I think back to the earliest days of any of my ventures, that's the one skill and the one massive piece of resilience you've got to have, which is, as the founder, you know, you're responsible for those first few sales and really just hammering the business into life. So I think that's really interesting. Coming to the AO journey, you know, how did you kind of come to start that business? You know, I love that story about the £1 bet that turned into this £1 billion business, but I know there will have been, you know, a great deal more that made you think, actually, this is what I want to hone in on, and here's where I want to build a business.
So again, you can rewrite history on these things. It wasn't massively overly complicated. Then, you know, so I'm not a techie person at all, and so I had a friend of mine who was unfortunately he's no longer with us, but he was a bit of an enigma. He was a van driver that was into quantum mathematics. And so he was in his spare time. And so he was in the early stages of the internet and understood it. And at the time, I was working for Moban Kitchens, selling direct sell kitchens and appliances. And what was clear to me, having worked in and around the kitchen industry since leaving school, was that the consumer got a pretty raw deal and paid a pretty high price. And so wherever that exists, then there's an opportunity. And so that's how I've always thought about opportunities, on whether we're solving a problem, whether we're inventing for customers. Customers don't always know what they want. Customers don't always know they're getting a raw deal. And, you know, and even still today, you know, we obsess about how are we inventing for customers? What's the next big disruption for us? And how are we thinking about that? And so Alan was telling me about this thing called the internet. and I reckoned that we could plug a customer straight into a manufacturer warehouse through visibility of the internet. And it was, let's remember, back 20 years ago, the internet wasn't smartphones. It was, you know, plug in dial-up, and you click it and you wait 5 minutes for a page to load. So you know, it really was a catalogue online, but customers save money. So you could save 40% on a major purchase for the home. And you know, in our first month, we did 80,000 of sales. And so we knew that customers would vote for it, and that they would also take a bit of a risk, because, you know, it was a bit of a risk. You know, you were ringing up to give you credit card details over the phone and so on. And it was a pretty basic customer journey. And that journey just evolved over time. But, you know, if I think back, we had some really fun things. Cheek and imagination are never to be underestimated. And one of the things that I loved about the internet is you could be anything that you wanted to be. And so when the phone rang, for example, we didn't dash to answer the phone. The first thing that we did was press play on a cassette recorder, because we'd recorded call center noise from a friend of mine who had a business with a sales office. And so even though there were only 3 of us in the office, it immediately sounded like a big and busy office. So I think that the resilience, the cheek and imagination, and just the belief that you can, and the willingness to have a go, are absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I mean, there's 2 things that really got me there. The first one was the original internet. I still get nights of terror imagining the repeated dial-up attempts into CompuServe in those early days. And secondly, you know, what you said about the call center, I remember, so back when I was still pretty young, I was like 16, 17, and we won our first PLC contract as a business. And I had a friend who was a mentor, and I said to him, look, I need to just borrow some of your staff to go to a meeting so I look like I've got a team, because I know I can hire them when I need to, but we just don't have it right now. And I think the naivety of being young meant that you just got on with it as well. And,
yeah, for sure.
You know, and in your own business, you know, you were, you know, whilst I sometimes get quite squeaky about the word disruption, I think what you did in terms of how consumers buy the product genuinely was something that was truly disruptive in e-com. You know, how did you go about actually trying to persuade customers to move away from this business model of, you know, going to the store and trying the fridge and the white goods, and something which arguably was actually a very service-led in-store experience, to moving to e-commerce, which arguably is a better experience now that we have it?
Yeah, so I think, again, I don't think we were as thoughtful, in truth. You know, I was just interestingly, I was just writing my stuff for our annual report the other day, and one of the comments that I make in it is that the store-based experience is as good as it's going to get, and the online experience will never be worse than it is today. So I think that was true 20 years ago. I don't think there's been that much serious innovation in a brick and mortar store in our world of selling electricals, and so, you know, the evolution and the innovation that's been happening in the online space, you know, has been at warp speed in reality, and I think is just accelerating. So I don't think we thought about it in that way. But if I think back to those days, you know, when I think about resilience and the resilience that you needed, everything that we wanted to do, you know, it was the answer's no, what's the question? So manufacturers didn't want to deal with you. Distributors didn't want to deal with you. The retailers didn't want the market disrupting. Somebody coming along and selling something for 40% less than you're fundamentally selling it for is not something that people welcome. We started our business with £100,000 of investment, and in the world of electricals, that doesn't buy you one container load. Yeah. And so we had no buying power. We had no infrastructure. We were piggybacking on the rest of everybody's infrastructure, and what we really had to do, you know, our biggest sales job was more to the likes of the manufacturers. I always say, you know, we'll do whatever, 2 billion this year, and we never buy anything. All we do is we convince people to sell things to us. And I think the last 12 months, we've had 10 years of mental behavior change with the manufacturers, and they are all now talking digital first. But even go back to, you know what, October, November 2019, and you know, they all still thought that stores were the future for how these products were going to be bought for the next 5 to 10 years. So I seem to have spent my life just trying to convince everybody that this is a direction of travel that the consumer wants to go on, and the consumer willingly wants to go on this. When you when you put a proposition in front of a customer that is cheaper, faster, more convenient, better, nicer, why wouldn't they vote for it? And so the reasons that they won't vote for it are they don't know about it. So we've got to get that message out to them, or you know, some friction in the process, or affordability, or whatever it might be. But it is fundamentally a quicker, better, cheaper way to buy the products, and so that tends to resonate with customers.
Wow. And, you know, at the start, we talked about the fact that, you know, it was 20 years ago when you started the business, but actually, when you think about the scale journey that AO's been on, that's actually no time at all when you think about the fact that, as you said, you know, this is a business with £2 billion in revenue, and, you know, as of 10 minutes ago, a market cap of over £1.21 billion, just about. You know, that's an astonishing scale journey. And for you as a founder, you know, you will have had to adapt your leadership style on that journey as well, from being that founder at the start, getting stuck into everything, to becoming, you know, the leader of a vast business. You know, how was that journey for you? How did you learn to adapt your leadership style as the business went from being this kind of scrappy startup to being this very fast growing scale up business?
Yeah, so I didn't have any, if you like, formal education for that. It was very firmly learning on the job, and that gives me a unique perspective and place in the business today as well, because you know, I know every corner of the business, and so I can walk around and just smell things because I've done all those roles. So I think how have I thought about that? Well, so I wasn't very academically astute in terms of, I just wasn't very good. I was a bit disruptive in school, but I loved work, and I loved learning, and I loved developing. So I've been on an incredible personal development journey that I think you have to consciously make. And I think you have to make a choice of whether you want to make something happen or whether you want the world to happen to you. And I just firmly wanted to make the world happen. So I would work harder to put myself in the place where I would learn things, normally from people, whether I can't read very well, so audiobooks are an amazing thing for me. I love spending time, just whether I'm in the car or when I'm on holiday, I just listen to endless audiobooks. And I love meeting interesting people, and I always make the effort to go and do that. And I think you can learn what to do as much as what not to do, to learn from people as well, and then shape that into the kind of person that you want to become. And, you know, what values are you going to live by, and how are you going to think about how you develop the business, not just functionally, what you develop. And AO's got a pretty unique culture, I think, as a result of that. And, you know, and that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, is the way that we've gone about doing what we've done. And, you know, there's loads of sort of management speak about thinking long-term, managing short-term. We always, you know, in reality, we always had to manage extremely short-term because we never had any cash. And it's all very great to have wonderful, grand ideas, but businesses go bust, as you know, for one reason and one reason only, which is they run out of cash. And so we had to obsess about cash and how we generated cash in the business. And unfortunately, that does sometimes drive short-term thinking. But it was always about how do we balance that short-term thinking with creating something that creates a legacy. And I talk about, you know, to the guys in our business, I mean, we are 20 years young. It feels like I've been here 100 years and 5 minutes at the same time. But, you know, very few people get the opportunity to bounce their grandkids on their knee and tell them that they were part of building something. You know, you never bounce your grandkids on your knee and tell them how much money you made. So you know, so we're much more focused on building something that's really special for the long term, that's got real longevity, that so many people across this organization can be proud of. And obviously, you know, I'm super proud of where we are and what we've achieved through loads of adversity.
And have you been able to keep that culture once you've gone public? Because oftentimes, you know, you often hear entrepreneurs talk about the fact that the minute, you know, once you've gone public, there's a change in the kind of cadence of how organizations governed and what matters and what's important. And, you know, for many businesses, it completely changes the culture. But I think one thing that I'm very curious about is how you've been able to maintain that culture of, you know, almost a family approach about long-term thinking, about looking after the team, but still be a very successful publicly traded business. Yeah,
so, you know, we've had a slightly bumpy journey. He who wanders is not necessarily lost, I think.
Yeah, great phrase.
The markets are, so would I float the business again? Yes, absolutely I would. It gave us the fuel to go and do lots of things that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do. And I've never viewed this, so I have this sort of dichotomy that I view this as my business and I view it as not my business, and it's everyone's business that's in it. And, you know, our share owners are as important, you know, they're investing in the business and they're with us on that journey. And I think that we need to be, you know, really respectful of that. And we always have been really respectful of that. And I'm really proud of the return that we've delivered for, you know, all our early stage investors. And then, you know, the people that got involved at our IPO, they will get, you know, I feel very passionate about them having made a great investment. But I don't think about that on a quarter by quarter basis. But I think it's fair to say that probably in the first 2 or 3 years of being a listed business, it was different. We were thrust into the limelight in a way that, with public scrutiny, in a way that we'd never experienced before. And you know, and we bent as an organization in ways that, when I look back, if I was doing it again, I wouldn't bend in those ways. But, you know, we listened to lots of conventional wisdom. And probably my single biggest learning is that incredible businesses are not built with conventional wisdom. And those people that learn businesses solely out of books, and don't actually get in the trenches and run any of them and just comment on them, then, you know, they're people that should really comment on businesses, and those people that want to run them should be running them. And so we should have, you know, probably the one mistake we made was to not quite articulate to the market clearly enough the journey that we were on and how we thought as an organization. You know, I remember making a comment. There was, I think it was in 2015 ish. And I can't remember whether it was something like we were going to make 17 million or 18 million in the year. And my comment was, well, I'm really not bothered whether we make 17 or 18. What I'm much more bothered about is, are we making all the right decisions for the future? Anyway, it wiped about 50% off our market value, that comment, because it turns out that lots of other people were bothered about it. But I still maintain it has no value to me on those small metric movements. But the stock market is a long-term weighing machine and a short-term voting machine. And so we need to not obsess about what the share price in our business is, and we need to obsess about what we are building and the inputs of our business, and the share price will just be an output of it. But that's easy to say, and sometimes it does get very frustrating when it is a very public scorecard of our business, and if you don't think it's being fairly valued, you know, about 40% of our staff take part in our share save scheme, and we've got a value creation plan where if we get to the top end of it, we're going to distribute 300 million of value so that every member of our team shares in the value that we create. It's not a share price, it's real money to certain people. So I think you just have to balance those things, and I think you have to be very respectful. But the ultimate question I always think of is, if I had the choice, would I do it again? And the answer is I would definitely do again, but I would do a few things differently.
Yeah, I think what you said about not monitoring the share price constantly is so important. I always remember a conversation with a friend in the US who had a business that floated on NASDAQ. And he said that one of the best decisions he ever made was removing his Bloomberg terminal from his desk, because it was the most anxiety-inducing device he ever had, so he could get back to the job. And before we kind of move on from this one, the IPO is that kind of pinnacle experience for so many people on the journey. How was that for you? How was it the day that you pressed the button and it went live? Was it a day of excitement? Was it a day of stress? What were your kind of memories from the day that you actually went public?
The day itself was a complete anticlimax, and so the build up to it was an energy fueled. It was just adrenaline fueled. Very little sleep, traveling all over the world. You're on a treadmill just running at 500 miles an hour, and with hundreds of new and interesting people to meet, and hundreds of new and different perspectives and interesting experiences that we hadn't done. So it was a really intellectually stretching and stimulating experience, and then there's a sort of realization of what you've promised everyone, and so then you've just got to deliver it.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of move on to your philanthropy work, because I think for so many of us in the business community here, and I'm sure elsewhere in the UK, the work that you're doing in philanthropy is really inspiring, and I think in many ways sets the tone for how entrepreneurs should be approaching giving. I guess the starting point was, what was it in your mind that made you want to embark on the philanthropy journey, at the level you have and so actively?
So it's something I've been involved in since I was relatively young, and so I got involved in a meaningful way when I was about 18, 19, and it's just grown over time. I believe deeply that we have a responsibility in life. Those that can help should, and so if I think so, my biggest thing is that talent is evenly distributed and opportunity is not. The world is not a fair place. So when you get a lack of fairness and inequality, then you don't create good societies. And so I was doing a talk the other day for a friend of mine who runs a financial institution. And I said, think about it in this way, that as a financial institution, if you behave badly, you will get regulated. And so if an industry self-regulates and does that to a very high standard, then government doesn't need to come along and interfere. And so why do we think about that in business terms and not in societal terms? So surely, there's only, you can only spend so much money, and I've given it a really good go as well. And what are you going to do with the rest of it? Of course, you want to make sure your family, your own family are sorted and that you're secure and all the rest of it. But when you reach a certain level, when is enough enough? And so people that do, and everybody thinks about this differently, by the way. And my way of thinking about it is only my way. I'm not trying to impose that on people as being the right way, but it's just how I think about it. Is, it would be so one is, why wait till you're dead to give a load of money away? Why not have the fun of doing it while you're alive? I think that government is good at some things and awful at others. And running businesses, they're awful at. And they just should get out of the way when it comes to business and help where they can, but broadly get out of the way. And operate. Government is not set up to operate things, in my view. So I think those people that are good at operating, that do know how to build and run organizations, have a skill set that they should really deploy for society as well as their own personal wealth. And so, you know, it comes back to my point that if you can, you should. And if you want a job doing well, give it to a busy man or woman. And so I feel that we have a sincere obligation to make a difference. And so I picked the topic of kids, because I think that, particularly when I think about social mobility, I think there is an incredible energy and entrepreneurial spirit and economic engine that we don't create the opportunity for it to thrive. And Boris Johnson's got his levelling up agenda, but I think that is, I think it's definitely true in regional towns across the country, but it's true everywhere. And actually, and this is me generalizing a bit, but I think those people who've had a tough start in life tend to be more resilient. They just lack the opportunities. They don't lack ambition. They don't lack drive. They just lack the opportunities. And they also spend their lives, lots of them, being told that they can't. Well, they can. And that starts with belief, then some seed funding. People can't follow in footsteps that they can't see. So we need to create pathways for these people. We need to inspire their imaginations, because how do we know what they're going to do? What's the, is it going to be a dance studio? Is it going to be cooking? Is it going to be dressmaking? Is it going to be recording an album? Is it going to be football? And how do we create the opportunities for them to try these things in exactly, my kids are lucky that they go to a wonderful school. And that wonderful school gives them two real things. One, it gives them confidence because they're told that they can. And they get an incredible range of experiences. And that's the gap. It's not the teaching that's the gap. So that's why I focused on kids and the youth centres that we create. And that's where I think government does have a role to play, because if you think about it as an infrastructure project, to give you an idea, we've closed about 700 youth centres across the UK in the last 5 or 6 years. That's the equivalent of closing about 10% of all state secondary schools, which would be unimaginable as a policy. And if you're a kid with no money, where do you go and what do you do? And so we as a nation need to invest as an infrastructure project with a 30-year view. And for £1 billion of government money, we can build a national infrastructure of world-class youth facilities with sustainable funding for 30 years ahead. So that's about 0.6% of what it'll cost to build HS2, to give it some context. Or when you think about other infrastructure projects like schools or hospitals, you wouldn't build them without a 30-year view, or Hinkley Point Power Station. Why do we think that kids only deserve, a crappy scout hut if they haven't got any money? Why should they get the worst facilities, and why should we compound those problems? So we've built a model that fixes it. And the best thing we do is convene local business, local communities, local government, and of course the kids themselves to make the project work. So not one in isolation will make it work, but it seems to be working so far.
Wow, I mean that is hugely inspiring work, and I would urge everyone on this call today to look up Onsite as a charity model. Now, I'm going to pass back to Justina in just a couple of minutes to kind of take audience questions as well, John. But before we do, I'm going to ask you that time-honored roundup question of all interviews, which is, what advice would you give to the attendees on this call who are entrepreneurs starting out on their journey, or maybe some of them already have and are looking to scale? What would be some of those key learnings that you might go back and give a younger John at the start of that journey?
So I think that perspiration, over inspiration, but I take inspiration over instruction. So inspiring people to do things a certain way takes a lot longer than instructing people to do a certain way, but it has much better longevity. There's no, just really, it's cliche, but there is just no substitute for resilience. And I mean that in every single way, whether that is physical, whether that, keep yourself fit, by the way, your brain works better when you sleep better and when you're fitter, and take your personal health really seriously. If you are really unfit, then you just won't be resilient enough. It's just it is a tough journey. And don't give up. When I used to sell direct kitchens back in the day, I always used to say, no is a mere stepping stone to yes. And you might have to get, when you go out doing things like raising funding, then, you might get 100 no's, but don't worry about it. You've got to take a deep breath and attack the next one as if it's the first time that you've done it, with all the passion and energy in the same way. And there's loads of the whole resilience point in that, and very much mind over matter, on just believe that you can, and be honest with yourself as well. That this is one of the things that, are you better? This might sound a strange thing to end on as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneurship call, but be honest with yourself. If this isn't something that you want to do, deeply want to do, and everything that comes with it, then be open and honest about that. You don't have to miserably just keep plodding on because you want to keep a badge of what you are. We've got some people that work in our business that would never start a business, that form an amazing part of our leadership team, who earn extremely good money and have a real missionary approach to what we're doing, and have a thoroughly fulfilled life. So it genuinely isn't for everybody.
Great. I think that's really, really good advice. And, I often say to students that entrepreneurship is one of the most rewarding but loneliest and hardest career choices you can make. So I think, hearing that from you, John, is going to, be really relevant and inspiring. And, I know we're going to have lots of questions from the audience, but I just wanted to thank you so much for that amazing conversation, John. And I'll hand over now to Justina to moderate questions from our attendees. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikas.
Thank you very much for you both. This is really, really great to hear the insight of that journey. So I've got a couple of questions from the audience. So the first one I have here, and the question is, I was interested in John's view on starting his trust, and what skills will he use in his philanthropy that are entrepreneurial?
So what was it, Justina? What was the first bit of that question? Starting
your trust.
Okay, so starting the trust.
Yeah.
I try and apply exactly the same principles to what we do in the charitable world as what we do in the business world, and and the customer just happens to be the kids, and so we innovate for the kids. We think long term. So my point about how do we create something that's got visibility? Lots of charities live month to month. And so when I think back to our month to month phases in the business where we didn't have any cash, then we didn't always make the right decisions. We made decisions that were necessary rather than decisions that were the right long-term decisions for the organization. And so one of my real obsessions is to make sure that the charity is really well funded, because then we can be philosophical. Things will go wrong in the charity just like they go wrong in a business, but try and make sure that they're as well funded as they can possibly be. Get great people. So in our business we would only recruit the best people. And then we will develop them. So we do exactly the same in the leadership team at Onside. We built a talent academy because each youth zone in isolation wouldn't have the funds to build the quality of sort of youth work university, if you like, that we can create centrally. and ultimately the people make the difference. It's as simple as that. So they're all the same principles that, you know, in an on-site youth zone, we build amazing facilities, you know, truly inspirational facilities, but it's actually the youth workers that make the difference and deliver the programs, not the building. But I don't see why it's a choice. I don't see why we can't have incredible youth workers in incredible buildings. I mean, that's 1 + 1 = 11. And so that's how we think about it, and making sure we have the best investments and the best tech and the best people and the best systems, because our customer deserves it and the kids deserve that. So, you know, it drives me insane when people think that kids from less privileged backgrounds should only get all the crap facilities. You know, I think it's arrogant and patronizing. You know, why shouldn't we reach for the stars for them in exactly the same way as I would want the best for my kids. So why wouldn't I want the best for somebody else's kids? Why should we have different classes of citizen in this? And actually, probably one of my things that I talk about relentlessly in AO is that incredible service is more profitable than poor service. Most people think you have to pay a premium for incredible service. Incredible service is infinitely more efficient than poor service. And I think it is exactly true in the philanthropic world as well. So dream for the stars.
Fantastic. I think some really great messages there. As a follow-up question to the previous one, are there any traits within AO that are not to be used in charitable business?
I can't particularly think of any. We just adapt. You know, you come back to real core basic principles of great people, best assets, obsess about who your customer is, invest, think for the long term, sense of ownership and culture. You know, we charge the kids 50p to come in. And, you know, for 50p, you can have a personal trainer session, you can be taught to cook, you can record an album, you do what you want. You can do all those things in your 50p. And I still think it's the single most important number. It's irrelevant in the funding of the organization, but it creates a sense of ownership, and it defines that the kids are customers. They are paying, so they have to go to school, and lots of them don't want to go to school, but they have to go to school, and they choose of their own free will to come to us, and they pay their own hard cash to come to us. And I think that creates a completely different environment. So no, I think I want customers to pay a fair price. I want kids to pay a fair price. I want customers to get incredible service. I want kids to have an incredible experience. So no, I think I can't think of one. I can't think of one trait that I wouldn't want to repeat.
That's great. And like you said, oftentimes you want to make sure that you've got the best people, the best funding. It's the same for business and for charities. So that's really great to hear you say that too. And that ownership, I can really it's something I can really relate to with our students as well. When we get them to sign up to events, come to these sessions, it's that sense of ownership. They are our clients as well. So thank you so much for that. I've got some really great responses in the chat as well. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them, but we can pass those on. So thank you, John. And thank you so much, Vikas, as well, for this really, really insightful and interesting conversation to open up our festival today.
It's a pleasure. And thanks, Justina, very much for having me. It's been hopefully useful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'll just now move on to just if there's any questions from the audience in regards to the festival. I have a couple more slides just to share with you, just the contact details and what's on next. Thank you so much. So this week, as I mentioned, we've got some really exciting things coming up. So just after the session at 3:30, we have Naomi Timperley doing a speed networking session. So if you'd like to have a chat with each other and get to know some more entrepreneurial students and make connections, then you can join us there. And this week, like I said, we have that social enterprise startup school. So that's tomorrow with Adrian Ashton, and it starts at 11. And we've also will be really wanting to showcase Salford Foundation and the work that they do through our Launch Business Challenge finals, where our students are competing for prizes of £6,000 to come up with a solution to help with the beneficiaries of the charity. So that's coming up next. You can join us. We'll be streaming across our social media platforms. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, if you have any questions, I can see that Jess has been sharing some links to some of the upcoming sessions this week. And so thank you so much, Jess. We do have some really great things coming up, but you can find out all about them on our social media channels. We have our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're also on LinkedIn, so you can get in touch with us through any of those channels. That way we'll be advertising the next sessions and how you can sign up. Then if you've got any questions, you can email us at launch@salford.ac.uk. Actually, as part of this festival, we have set aside a really valuable time with business mentors. So if you've got questions, any questions about a business idea, about how to take your business to the next level, how to plan it, anything to do with an idea that you have, or you're wanting to increase your entrepreneurial skills, we have 3 really great business mentors that we can set you up for a one-to-one appointment and talk to you. And that's all free to students and alumni. And you'll be able to connect. And like I said, we have 3 business competitions where we'll be giving away nearly £40,000 to participants. So if you'd like to find out more, visit us on our website there. Jess will be sharing that too, and sign up, and hopefully we'll be seeing you at the next session. Okay. So thank you so much for that, and thank you to all the speakers for joining me, and I'm hoping you all enjoy the session. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.